Okay, Jerry, we're going to take a look at your swing before the session began. In this swing report, I want to identify a few of the missing fundamentals in your swing. Every player has missing fundamentals. The pros have a few missing fundamentals, and recreational golfers have a lot of missing fundamentals. But for a pro or amateur, you only want to work on one or two missing fundamentals at a time. If there were 100 fundamentals in a golf swing, and the pros had 90, and you had 60, and you were missing 40 fundamentals, you don't want to work on any of the 40 missing fundamentals. You want to identify the 61st fundamental that will give you the greatest gain. This swing report will identify the next best fundamental you need to work on. I'm going to compare your swing to Grant Waite, PGA Tour player. Tiger Woods has said that he believes that Grant Waite has the best swing in golf. When analyzing a golf swing, it's common to start at the setup, the one position. But I think it's best to start at the impact position, the 7th position. The first thing you need to understand is the golf ball only responds to one thing, and that's the laws of physics and motion that existed at the moment of impact. And the golf ball is on the face of the club a fraction of a second. Everything that ball does, how high it goes, how far it goes, the direction it starts, the amount of curve, everything is a response to the club's position at the moment of impact. And the club's position is a direct response to your body's position, your swing form at the moment of impact. If you have ball flight errors, then you have club position errors. If you have club position errors, then you have swing form errors at impact. And everything you do prior to impact is in preparation of having a fundamentally sound impact position. Here I have both you and Grant in the impact position. The first thing we want to look at is the club's position. I've drawn a green line on the shaft, and you can see in Grant he has a shaft lean. His hands are in front of the golf ball. Your hands are a little bit behind the ball at impact. One of the most critical fundamentals of a golf swing when hitting a ball that's on the ground is that you must have a shaft lean. You must have the hands in front of the ball at impact so that the downward arc of the swing is hitting the golf ball. You don't want to hit on the up part of the swing. You want your low point to be in front of the golf ball. Now that we know what the club's position should be at impact, let's look at what Grant does to help him achieve that club position. I already mentioned that one of the things he does is he puts his hands in front of the golf ball. The second thing he does is he puts the majority of his weight on his left side at impact. The average pro has 85% of his weight on his left foot at the moment of impact. I've drawn a line straight up from Grant's left ankle and yours as well. That line goes right through the middle of Grant's body. It's going right through his belt buckle. You have the majority of your weight behind your left foot. In fact, it appears you have a little bit more weight on your back foot than your left foot. We can see a nice angle here in his back leg. He's coming off of his back foot. So the missing fundamentals we're going to identify and work on are those fundamentals that will help you put more weight on your left side at impact and get your hands in front of the golf ball. Now let's look at the golf positions before impact. Let's see what Grant does in his setup that helps him have a good, fundamentally sound impact position. First, let's look at his feet. He has a little wider stance than you do, and I would recommend widening your stance in order to have a better foundation for the weight shift to the left side on the downswing. Also, Grant flares his left foot out. In fact, both feet are flared a little bit in the setup. This facilitates the proper shifting to the left side. On the downswing, he's going to be moving his weight where he has 85% of his weight on his left foot at impact. When you flare that foot out, that will assist in making that move. Now let's look at his arms and hand position. He has a nice extended left arm, and it's almost in the same line as the shaft of the club. So in his setup, he has a shaft lean at the beginning. In a way, he has set up almost in a mini impact position. Now you also have a pretty good extension in your left arm, but your arm is a little bit more on the side of your body, where Grant is more on top of his chest. I do like the fact that you have a little bit of a shaft lean also at your setup. That's very good. You have your hands in front of the golf ball when you set up, and that will help you have a shaft lean at impact. Now let's look at your weight distribution as you set up. Drawing a line off of Grant's left ankle and right ankle. Grant is somewhat centered, but he has a little more weight on his left side than his right side. The ideal model is to have about 55% of your weight on your left side and about 45% on your right side. This prepares you to be in that 85% position at impact. You are more centered than Grant. In fact, you might even have a little more weight on your right foot than your left. But when we change your width of your stance and flaring your feet, this will change your weight distribution. So the things I would like for you to work on in your setup is a wider stance, flare the toes, extend this left arm and set it more on top of your chest instead of the sides. And then feel like you have just a fraction more weight on your left side as you set up. Here we are in the 3 position. This is when the left arm is parallel to the ground in the backswing. The main thing we want to look at is how you move the center of your body mass during the backswing. Grant started with a little bit more weight on his left side, and in his backswing he maintains that weight position. He does not rock or sway to the right during his backswing. We can see that his head position is closer to the left leg than it is the right leg. In your backswing, you do sway a little bit to the right. Your head is a little closer to the right foot than the left. Now you do make a good turn. I like the fact I see the hips turning. That is very good. Also, you're making a good shoulder turn here. It's almost the same amount of turn that Grant has. Once we widen your stance, you'll be able to have a good, proper turn and a 3 position that looks more like Grant. The other thing that Grant does is a very good extended left arm, and he's hinged his wrist. He almost has a right angle when he gets to the 3 position. You also have a good extended arm, and you've also hinged your wrist correctly. So you've loaded your hands really well here. Now we're at the top of the backswing. This is the 4 position. Grant has maintained his weight on his left side. His head is still in the same position, closer to the left than the right. You have basically stayed in your same position that you were in the 3 position. You're just a little more to the right than Grant is. Now we're in the 6th position. This is when the club is parallel to the ground on the downswing. I've drawn a line straight up from yours and Grant's left foot. Even before impact, Grant has almost the 85% of his weight on his left side. This red line crosses right into his belt buckle. So he's moved a large majority of his weight onto his left foot. You have moved a little closer to your left foot. This head now is very close to your left foot, but not near as much as Grant has. Once you have a wider stance, that'll be an easier move for you to make, where you can have a little better shift to the left side. When we look at the angle formed by the shaft of the club and the right arm, it's a right angle for Grant. It is almost the same for your swing as well. You have maintained a good angle in your wrist on the downswing. The difference, though, is that Grant has his right elbow connected to his right side. It's kind of stuck right in his right hip. And you've let your right arm pull away from the body. So you've made kind of what we call a casting move, throwing the club out away from your body. Because Grant has learned to drive to the left, he's able to pull that club down into his side. Here we are once again at impact. I've drawn a line straight up from where the golf ball is. And we can see that Grant has his hands in front of the golf ball. Your hands are basically even with the golf ball. So Grant has that shaft lean, which allows him to hit down on the ball and have the low point in front of the ball. Your low point is right where the ball is, and if you're just a fraction off, you're going to hit behind it. Or if you're a fraction off the other way, you'll hit it thin. This shows your position at the starting position and at the impact position. As you can see, there is not a lot of difference in your swing form. Most of your swing is coming only from your hands and arms. You don't really use your lower body effectively. Once we change your setup and we get a little wider stance and we learn how to move our weight during the swing, you will have a more dynamic shot. Here we are in the 10th position, the final position, and Grant is in that classic pose. He's standing up straight, he's on his left side, his back foot is on the toe, he's facing the target, his eyes are looking over the arm. Let's look at your 10th position. If we focus strictly on the waist up, you look very similar to Grant. You're facing the target, you're folding your arms to your left, your eyes are looking over your right arm. Very good. You're balancing most of your weight on the left side, but you're not on the tip of the toe. So from the waist up, you have a very fundamentally sound finish. The only difference is the waist down. Once we change your setup and widen your stance and flare the feet, and you go through some drills where you learn how to shift your weight a little bit more to the left on the downswing, you will have a more dynamic shot and a more classic finish. No one expects any recreational golfer to swing like the pros. We're just going to work on a few things in your setup and on your downswing so that you'll be a few fundamentals closer to a good golf swing. We just completed a review of your swing before our session began. The picture on the left is your setup at the beginning of the session. The picture on the right is your setup after we worked on some of these changes. One of the first things we worked on is getting these arms extended and on top of your chest. It's easy to see how your elbows are much closer together here. We also widened your stance a little bit. And in future sessions, I would want to widen that a little bit more. We mostly worked on getting the arms in a better position so that you could have good, consistent contact with the golf ball. This is the top of the backswing, the 4 position. And it's easy to see how the changes you made in the setup has created an obvious and dramatic difference in your 4 position. You have more shoulder turn. Your left arm is more extended. It's easier for you to keep it straight. And you're taking the club back more So you have loaded more power because you had more shoulder turn. You had more shoulder turn because you had your arms in a better position to facilitate a better shoulder turn. Here we are at the end of the swing, and yes, you still are a little bit flat-footed here because we haven't worked that much yet on your lower body action. But just by changing your arms, you were able to have a better backswing and load up the arms and hands with more power, and therefore you could unload more power through impact. And this is why we're seeing the club go beyond the swing that you had before. So this is certainly a demonstration and evidence that you created a little bit more club head speed and more power by simply changing your arm position at the setup. As we add other layers of sophistication to your swing, we will see continued improvement.